What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. We got a big video here. The player actually done something that they've never done before in terms of starting a fusion. They started a fusion while also starting a anniversary path at the same time. We had no heads up on any of this scheduling. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the fusion schedule, how best to get the fusion or how best to optimize our path to the fusion, as well as talk about this anniversary path here. It's a big path, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. And there's also a bunch of events that we probably want to participate in as well. So there's a lot to unpack. So first, let's talk about the fusion here. We got Pelops here. Pelops is going to be the second Argonite up for grabs. First, we had Cassandra. Now we have Pelops. He's a decent champion. I think from my limited play testing, his best value is probably going to be his Magma Shield. His A2 can hit pretty hard, but you need a pretty good setup for him just to get it to hit really good. It's a single target hit as well. But yeah, like I said, his best value is probably going to be how you want to use his Magma Shield. It's going to be really strong in Titus teams, for example. His passive's also pretty good as well. It lands the HP burn 100% of the time if he gets hit. And then the petrification, which is very, very strong. It seems the Pelops we had tested in the test server was not working properly, perhaps, with some of this passive stuff. And Plarium's still kind of working on that. So we might get an announcement on Pelops sometime in the near future about possibly some fixes. So just a heads up on that. But he seems like a pretty decent champion. I'm going to go for him. And I think he's going to be pretty decent in places like Faction Wars too, just to build out your Argonite teams, for example. Anyways, guys, let's jump into this and let's talk about the fusion schedule first. So first, like I said, it's going to be a classic fusion. So you collect rares, you level them up, and then you build epics, you level them up, you fuse the epics together, and then you get your champion at the end, which is going to be Pelops. Kind of see here the rares are going to be voids. Plarium has been doing this for a little while now, probably like a year or so. They've been offering way more void rares, so it's harder to pull the rares from like mystery shards and stuff like that, and it's harder to recover if you miss one of these events. And then we have the epic here, which is going to be one of the new Argonites, and he's going to be a Magic Infinity champion. Now, the epic is actually pretty interesting. So if you manage to pull the epic from any of your shard pulls early on, it's going to be a pretty big help to some of the events, obviously, because the epic is effectively worth, 4 rares, right? So that means you can skip 4 of these events, perhaps. But keep in mind that some of these events actually have 2 rares in them. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. So first, we start off with the Ice Golem tournament on day 1. Now, these Ice Golem tournaments or any kind of these dungeon tournaments, they take about 2.2k energy. And that's if you do it on stage 20. So just if you want to be the most efficient with it, it's about 1-to-1 in terms of overall energy spend. If you're going to go for hard 10, for example, you're going to lose a little bit of efficiency just for better gear drop rates. Now, this anniversary path here will contain 2 rares and the epic as well. And the anniversary path is basically a dungeon diver paired up with a summoning rush event. It's not a champion chase style event, so you're not going to want to pull fragment, champions or anything like that. And it's strictly based off of the quality of shard that you're pulling. So pulling something like the Sacred Shard is going to be worth way more points and generally recommended to complete these style of events. So whatever you're doing into the Ice Golem will go points into the anniversary path. We'll break down the anniversary path after I finish talking about the fusion schedule here. It's a pretty big one. There's 2 rares and an epic in it. And like I said, there's a lot of good shard events happening right now. It's going to happen all through the weekend. So let's finish this schedule and then we'll talk about the anniversary path. We got the gear enhancement events. So we got 1, 2, and 3. These things are pretty typical. 3 of them during each fusion. About 15 to 20 million silver is needed to finish these events usually. Now, don't worry if you don't have 60 million silver saved up in the bank. Usually you can pick up a good chunk of silver while you're actually doing the fusion if you're just active every day. I would say a good starting point is probably between 10 and 20 million just to start the fusion. And then you can just pick up the rest along the way as you're grinding out. We also have a single rare in a champion training tournament that's going to mesh or mix in well with the Ice Golem. If you have, for example, a solo champion, somebody like Tomb Lord, for example, somebody like Priest Ornn, they can all solo with 4 food. Then you can do it, kind of double dip or triple dip with the Ice Golem tournament, champion training, and the anniversary path. If you want to be like ultra efficient with your energy there. And then lastly, there is a fire tournament that's going to get a little bit of the anniversary path as well. So if you want to mix in the fire night tournament, mix those points into the anniversary path, you could do that as well. We had CVC happening on Tuesday and Wednesday. So this one is going to be personal rewards most likely. And you can see like a little bit of a lull here, right? You can see a little bit of a lull here. immediately after the anniversary path. Now, you guys may also notice that there's actually only two Gear Hunter style events. So you kind of see one here, Gear Hunters, and then the anniversary path is the second Gear Hunter. So I think during this CVC, this personal reward CVC, there's probably going to be something here, something Gear Hunter related. It could be a deck of fate, for example. It could be, I mean, it could be another hero's path for something, but it's not going to be part of the fusion. So if you're just worried about the fusion, then you're not going to worry about this event that's probably going to be happening during CVC. But in my opinion, it's probably going to be some kind of dungeon diving event. And I wouldn't be surprised if they put, for example, a deck of fate featuring Gear Hunters, featuring soul stones. We just had a boosted soul stone event, so it kind of makes sense for them to lean into that and just put a deck of fate here for something, right? And since this anniversary path is for relics, I would imagine that this deck of fate is probably going to be a fusion, or not a fusion, but it's probably going to be a champion. And the only champion that's probably left on the table that is most likely to happen is probably going to be Edward. So my guess is that it is going to be Edward, unless they feel like they want to put one of the brand new Argonites in here, which is, I guess, totally possible. But this would be something that I would be really, really suspicious of. That's kind of blank during CVC. So I'm guessing it's going to be Dungeon Diver with maybe Soul Stones or Shards. Again, we do have a Shard event happening all weekend. It is possible that they do back-to-back Shard events. It's definitely possible, but it could also be Soul Stones as well. We just had a boosted Soul Stone event. So either one of them would be particularly nasty because we'll be low on resources, right? But I would definitely be very, very cautious of this block of time here. Moving on a little bit, we got the Spider Tournament, and then we have Spider Tournament alongside a double rare training event. So there's going to be two rares in this training event. Spider Tournament, again, 2.2k energy to finish. This double rare champion training event is going to be interesting. That means it's going to be pretty deep. You could double dip a bit with the Spider Tournament. So you could have, for example, like Eric's would be a free to play option where you can farm hard 10. You could have Otherion, you can have Marius. They can all farm a spider with some food. And then you can kind of double dip your energy there for some points in two different events. Now, on the second day, you do have the Gear Hunters here as well. So at this point, you can kind of triple dip. You can get Spider points, Training points, and Gear Hunter points at the same time. Each one of these Gear Hunters usually costs you between 5,000 energy, at least 5,000 to 6,000 energy, depending on which level you are farming. Level 20 would be the most efficient. The event dungeon is ending or ended, I think. So there's no, special level that's going to get you some additional points. It's back to dungeon 20 being the most efficient. And then we have a champion chase tournament happening. We have two of these classic arenas, which are basically just gimme points. Make sure you guys do those right away. Now, this champion chase tournament on this weekend, we just had, what do we have not too long ago? We have Ancients today, 2x Ancients today, and then we have 2x Sacreds on the weekend. So that means this champion chase is probably going to be 2x Voids. So that kind of makes sense, 2x Voids. Now, the big kind of curveball here is if it's going to be 2x Primals. It could be 2x Primals. What are? Sorry. 4 a.m. things. But anyways, primals with a P, it could be 2x primals. It wouldn't be a terrible time here. And I would think, if I was playing, I would definitely think hard about 2x primals just to throw everybody off, by the way, because with the way that this schedule is laid out, going hard into the anniversary event for Fusion, Epic, for example, means that you want to skip some of these events. The most likely event that you want to skip would be the champion chase. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple reasons why you guys should not skip this champion chase right now. One, like I said, it's probably going to be 2x Voids. Or it could very likely be 2x Primals, which is the best time to pull your Primal Shards. You get the boosted rates and all that. The other reason is that you're going to get 4 fusions, 4 fusion epics that you can fuse during the Champion's Chase. So you have 4 of the epics that you can fuse. So that's going to be, a smooth 1,000 points going into this Champion Chase. If there's going to be a 2x event that's going to go along with it as well, you're going to get points a lot easier, for example. We have a new Grim Forest rotation. We have a new Cursed City rotation, so you can save your remnants for those. So let's assume you get half of those remnants. So that's going to be 2 remnant pulls. So that's going to be at least 2 epics that you're going to get. So I would say, it's going to be pretty easy for you guys to start off this champion chase with a good amount of points just from random stuff. And then if Plarium throws kind of like a here's a juicy bone kind of event, like I said, 2x primals, kind of handcuffs you into participating if you have been saving your primals for a little bit and you're going to participate anyways. So I think this champion chase is going to be a little bit hard to skip just based off of what we have available for us. Like, for example, I've been saving up my remnants for a little bit. I have 4 already. I'll probably have 5 going into this champion chase. So 5 remnant shards for me, that's an easy 1.25k, and then I got 4 epics, that's 2.25k, and then the rest would just come from whatever the 2x event is probably going to be happening. And then of course you can always pull mystery shards as well to get training food just to get through everything. I mean, a lot of it lines up pretty well. There's a lot of things happening here. It looks like a pretty deep training event, so you're going to be spending a lot of food and stuff. So pulling mysteries here also makes a lot of sense for this champion chase. All right, so overall, I think this fusion is relatively straightforward. I think the hardest part about this is figuring out what we want to do with the anniversary path. So I'll break down the anniversary path after the schedule, and we'll talk more about that. The layout of the events is actually relatively good. There's a lot of opportunities for double dipping. There's actually a couple opportunities for triple dipping as well. And there's only 2 gear related events, so gear hunter related events. So that's a bit of a big energy saving here. And we have the chase in the second half of the fusion, which allows us to basically fuse the epics in this fusion and get points towards the champion chase. So I would say overall a little bit on the friendly side in terms of layout, but there's definitely some trouble or definitely some attention spots here, mainly this gap during CVC. All right, so that's going to be the fusion schedule. Let's talk about this anniversaries path here a little bit more in detail. All right, guys, let's quickly look at this anniversaries path here. I'm going to do this as thoroughly as possible. There's a lot going on, like I said. So this anniversary path here, you guys can kind of see we got the old relics back in the mix. Well, at least the old relic materials. So that's a good thing for you guys if you guys are looking for some key relics from the past. Now, the big thing about this anniversary path, we are getting points from getting gear and accessories in dungeons, and then we are getting points from pulling shards. Nothing crazy about the point totals here for the shard portion or the gear hunter portion. You're getting about 1.75 points per energy if you're farming hard 10. Just something to keep in mind as we talk more about the overall point totals. All right, so let's jump into the breakdown here. Actually, let's get a overview look of everything. There we go. So that's the overview look. And I'm going to jump back into the relic collection so we get a nice reminder of what is happening. So we're going to be talking about some of the event dungeons or the event relics that were in the past. So we have the Alice Adventures, we have the Cat's Gaze, which is going to be the big prize here. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, legendary relic in the game. I'd say Wand of Submission is second, but the Cat's Gaze is so good as a damage dealing relic, and it's only a legendary relic, which is absolutely amazing. Main stat, crit damage here as well. And then you get the fat ignore defense stuff on it. I have an 18 plus 18 Cat's Gaze that I use on my Titus myself, and it's one of my best damage dealing relics. Chaos Awakes, main stat, Crown of Corruption is going to be pretty good. And then you have the Covetous Passion here. Unfortunately, not main stat crit damage, but you do get the Shatter buff, but only for 2 turns. So it's a little bit conditional. And Shatter buff gives you 15% ignore defense. What else? Skull of Treason's okay. For more HP burn damage is actually not bad, I guess. For the discovery category, we have the Stars of Janan. This one is insanely good, especially for any kind of champion in the arena that you want to have a cut-in ability. So what I mean by cut-in ability is when you want that champion to disrupt your enemy turn order. So the best one would be somebody like a lockout champion or a crowd control champion, like maybe Crixia. I mean, you could put this on somebody like Fabian even. But unfortunately, it doesn't have any kind of speed. So ideally, a champion that utilizes resistance. So yeah, Crixia would work. Galathier would work as well. Ziba Servitude, good, really kind of busted relic on some champions. Like personally speaking, I don't really have a good champion for this relic. Like I put it on my UDK just because he has the biggest health pool, but you want a champion with a massive health pool, so that you can actually get some value from this. Or a champion with a massive health pool with some healing. So the most popular one is going to be Nice. Not everyone has a Nice, of course, but this relic is pretty busted on a Nice for sure. Last Laugh, I like. I think it's decent. It's probably similar to like Aspect of Suroth. I don't like that it's a chance to activate, whereas the Suroth just kind of prevents. So that's kind of like my knock against this, but it's still not too bad, especially if you put it on a champion with like healing, lots of built-in healing. So the ability to use this and then heal back is actually way easier. No Forge Pass stuff, and then Winds of Winter. We currently have the Winds of Winter stuff happening right now. The dice, very interesting relic, and then the Tower Helm, very good as well. I've seen this on a couple teams so far. It starts off with a cool buff. The Fortify buff is very unique, but basically this is a ignore, receive 25% Fortify buff, which means that 25% of ignore defense from your enemy it's less effective by 25%, and then you get additional ignore defense effects used against the wearer are less effective. So the Tower Helm's a huge defensive type of relic, but both of these are pretty good. I think the dice works okay with Carnage, I think, because of his counterattack. So you constantly get him to kind of lock out your opponents. So I mean, it's pretty cool. We have the Winds of Winter right now, but okay, so we have the kind of basic overview of what kind of rewards we're looking at, right? So in this Hero's Path, we fortunately, we are just getting relic materials out of it. There are some pretty big ticket items here. For example, we have a couple mythical books, and then we have this we have this frame here at the bottom with the 7 for the anniversary in the middle of it, and you can kind of see the epic here, but it's locked behind 4 keys. So that's pretty nasty. There are 4 keys here in the middle slot. So let's talk about the cheapest path that we need to take to get the rares first, because that's the minimum you need to do to complete this fusion. You need the rares. All right, guys. So first, let's talk about the cheapest path to still be in the running for the fusion. So for the fusion, you need to collect both of these rares. Otherwise, your fusion is going to be done unless you pull one of these rares from a void shard. So this is the cheapest path here. Now, you guys might have some small differences in terms of valuing some of these resources. Most of them are pretty low value resources. I would say the core hammer here is definitely elevated in some value since with parry and deflection have been buffed. So you could definitely target the 5 core hammers here, but then that means you'll be hugging the right-hand side. So just make sure that you guys are aware that if you guys hug down the right-hand side, you guys are going to get mostly the right-hand side rewards. If you go down the left-hand side, you guys are going to get the left-hand side rewards here. So just in case you guys are going deeper than expected, be prepared for whichever side reward you guys end up going, right? At least in the beginning. So personally speaking, I do value the left-hand side rewards a little bit just because we are targeting the Cat's Gaze in the Alice Adventurers mats instead of going towards the other mats like the Winds of Winter, for example. But this is the cheapest path. It's going to cost you 37,500 points for a total of 8.33 sacreds. If you guys recall, usually in summon events, it costs you about 6 sacred shards just so you guys can participate, get the first bit of the fusion and participate. Now in this case, there is 2 rares in this event, and I think basically getting 2 rares, which is the equivalent of 2 events for 8.33 sacred shards worth of points, is actually not that bad. Now the rewards leading up to it are pretty bad. There's just really nothing of value here. You're getting a couple epic materials, not even a full epic craft, which is kind of crazy, but there's really nothing of value leading up to this. So usually, in a summon rush event, you might get some gems, might get some energy, something that's going to be more useful. But in this case, you're just getting a bunch of, relic stuff, so a bunch of, gambling material, right? But I think overall the cost is not bad. Now there is a ancient event going on right now. There's a 2x ancient event, not a 2x boosted event, but there is an extra legendary event for ancients right now. Now, ancients aren't the best in terms of overall point usage in normal summon rushes, but during this hero's path, each ancient is actually more worthwhile using than it is usually in a normal summon rush. So what I mean by this is when you go down to the path breakdown, hold on, I'll bring it up for you guys here. and you look up the ancient shard, it's actually 300 points, right? And then the sacred shard is 4,500 points. So 15 ancient shards is equivalent to one sacred shard. In a normal summon rush, ancient shards are worth 25 of, 25 ancient shards are worth one sacred shard. So, relatively speaking, the ancient shard in this event, or usually these path events, they're worthwhile using. And there is an extra legendary event happening right now for ancient shards. So it's a good time to pull your ancient shards. Try to gamble it up, get some points towards this hero's path. Like I said, 15 ancient shards per one sacred shard. So if you want to do this entire event with just ancient shards, it's going to be 8.33 x 15, which is going to be a total of 125 ancient shards. All right, so what about the epic in this hero's path? So if you want the epic, you need all four of these keys. So you'll be doing all four of these rows. So the total cost for the epic is going to cost you 52,500 points, or the equivalent of just under 12 sacred shards, or the equivalent of 175 ancient shards. So if you were really unlucky with your 1+1 legendary event for ancient shards, if you spend 175, you can pick up the epic for your trouble. The epic is worth 4 rares, which means you can skip 4 rares during the fusion schedule. That's going to be totally up to you whether you want that flexibility. Some people, if they're busy, if they're scared of missing, a rare, for example, maybe picking up the epic is a good insurance policy. I kind of explained in the fusion calendar why picking up the rare here won't give you too much value, because usually you want to skip summoning events. So if you're spending shards on summoning events for, a higher reward, ideally, it would allow you to skip another summon event later down the line. So in this case, I explained to you guys why the champion chase in the second half of this fusion is probably something you don't want to skip. So, skipping the events while picking up this relic, while picking up this epic means you're probably skipping some other events, but not shard related events. So it's going to be up to you guys what you guys think is higher value. If you're low on energy, maybe you guys want to skip maybe you guys want to skip, like, for example, the gear hunter event at the second half of this fusion. Maybe you want to skip some of the turn event, dungeon events, for example. If you're low on silver, maybe you want to skip the gear enhancement events. That's kind of going to give you guys a rough gauge of how important this epic is for you guys. Honestly, 12 sacred shards for an epic and 2 rares, which is the equivalent of 2 events. It's not bad. It's not bad. We also have, like I said, an energy component here. And if you want to factor in that this is a 4-day event, we're spending probably 4,000 energy worth of regeneration energy, advanced quest energy, etc., etc. 4,000 energy is going to knock off, like 1.5 sacred shards off this price. So you're spending about 10 sacred shards for this epic. And I think it's very reasonable to go this route if you guys want that flexibility, if you guys are worried at all. But I don't think it has too much value in terms of just being efficient with shards, because, like I said, we're probably going to be jumping into the champion chase in the back half of this fusion. So unless you're really, really valuing energy or just general flexibility, I would say this epic's actually not something that we should probably go for. All right, so we talked about the basic rare path here, where you have to pick up the 2 rares. That's going to cost you 8.33 sacred shards. We talked about the epic path, which is going to cost you just under 12 sacred shards if you want to get the epic. Keep in mind that you can skip some events after picking up the epic. Now, I want to talk to you guys about the path that I'm probably going to go down, which is to chase some of these Cat's Gaze relics. Now, there is 100 legendary mats down here on the left-hand side. And if I forgo the epic completely, so if I forgo the epic, which is something that I kind of encourage you guys to do, just from a efficiency standpoint from the schedule, like I said, we're probably going to participate in the champion chase. It's going to cost 13 sacred shards to get you 1 legendary craft, 1 legendary shot at the Cat's Gaze. The odds of rolling the Cat's Gaze is 40% chance at getting a legendary from these legendary mats. And then you're competing against the standard group, which is the Aspect of Suroth or the Wand of Submission. So it's a coin flip there afterwards. But you know what? It's still a chance at it. You also have a 0.5% chance of getting a mythical. There's no mythicals in the Alice Adventures group. So, you have a chance at the Hollow Hilt or the Magma Shield, which, generally are pretty strong mythical relics. And if you get really, really unlucky with your pulls, going all the way down to the mythical Alice mats, it's going to be interesting because it's going to give you an 80% chance at pulling a legendary, and that 80%, and then a coin flip for getting Alice. Alice, the relic from Alice, which is the cat's gaze. So that's going to give you the highest chance of getting a cat's gaze. But if you get a mythical relic, 20% chance you're going to get the Hollowed Hilt or the Magma Shield, which again, they're good, solid mythical relics. That's going to cost you 22 sacred shards and 330 ancient shards if you want to go all the way with the ancients. You're not going to go all the way with the ancients here, but this is basically the path for people that get really unlucky with their sacred shards, for example, or if you just have a lot of energy to whale out on, or if you're just a whale and you're just pulling a lot of shards anyways. Void shards are also in the mix. There's a progressive event for void champions as well. Hecaton, Storm Herald Hecaton is in the mix, so people might want to chase him. But this would be one of the Kraken paths here. I would definitely highly recommend the Alice Adventure relics over the other ones. Although the other ones do have mythical, other mythicals that are very interesting. Like I said, the Star of Janang is probably going to be the best and most PvP meta relic from all of this. But any of the mythical relics are going to be pretty solid. So if you're, a Kraken, you're going to be chasing some of those. But I think for most people that, I wouldn't say most people, but I would say most likely for people, this is probably some of the paths that would make the most sense. I would definitely recommend not considering spending, 20 plus sacred shards on an event like this, because you're just basically spending that much resources on a complete gamble, right? These relics are total gambles. Obviously, you're gambling along the way because you're pulling shards for a 1+1 event, but it's much more worth it to save these resources for guaranteed events. We still have the Assassin's Creed collab happening. Edward's still probably in the mix to get some kind of event. I did highlight that in the Fusion schedule. There could potentially be a Deck of Fate event happening immediately after this, and we don't know if it's going to be a shard event. So it's still probably a good idea to save on to whatever resources you have, especially if you're still interested in some of these champions. Also, keep in mind that the souls for these champions are probably still up for grabs. The only champion that got finished off was probably Basim. Basim was offered as a guarantee, and his soul was already offered. So we're probably not going to see anything more on Basim. But Edward, nothing on Edward yet. No Edward soul. Pontiff is also another champion that is in the event that probably will get his own guaranteed event at some point in time in the next couple of weeks. We just had the Bayek champion chase guarantee, so Bayek's soul is probably going to be up for grabs as well at some point during this month. And we have all these fancy new Argonite champions, right? Like there's some cool ones that we might actually see, maybe Plarium pops some of them up. Who knows, right? So if you're trying to conserve your resources the best you can, by all means, go for it. Conserve your resources. The rest of this, they're strictly crazy gambles or just kind of like backup plans in case your pull sessions didn't go very well. So if you, like I said, didn't get very lucky or you had to pull a lot of shards, then at least, try to get the most out of this hero's path. And I think going down the left-hand side for the Alice Adventure relics gives you the most out of this if you end up pulling more than you intended to. But I think I wouldn't go out of my way to chase some of these relic materials if you don't have extra resources at your disposal. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the video here. I covered quite a bit. We have the fusion schedule on the left-hand side right here, and then we have the hero's path breakdown on the right-hand side there. Overall, I think if you're just doing the minimum, just picking up the 2 rares from this hero's path, it's actually not too bad. It's a 4-day event. Run your energy, do your ice golem, do your training, do your fire knight, do whatever. Spend all your energy that you need to spend, and then see how many shards you need to pull. There is 1+1 events happening, ancients and sacred shards. Ancients is going to be, both of these events, they favor people that keep track of their mercy so that you know exactly when your legendary will arrive in. But that's strictly like a min-max thing. Like if you really want to min-max, you have to know your mercy so that you know how many shards you're committing to these type of events. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult, right? It's difficult. So, perhaps you might underpull, you might overpull. Personally speaking, there's 2 days of 1+1 ancients to start off the event. I'm going to be pulling my ancients. And you could also possibly pull the epic as well. If you pull the epic, perhaps your whole fusion schedule changes. So that's something to consider as well. So pulling your shards and then figuring out the energy component might be the best. For me, I do have extra resources that I'm, okay spending for this. So I'm going to pull my shards first and then see where I end up with the 1+1 hits. And then I'll stop pulling shards and then I'll fill in the rest of the gaps with the energy towards the different events. And I'll be fully expecting to participate in the champion chase. Like I said, I think it's a pretty good champion chase considering that we can, fuse the 4 epics. We have, different rotations of the rep for remnant summons, and it's during a champion training event with 2 rares in it. So it's probably going to be a deeper champion training event. So you can pull mystery shards and stuff like that just for additional food to go through that training event. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the video. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it was informative to you guys. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if I missed something. There's a lot of info here, so I definitely could have missed something as well. If you appreciate the content, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Would really, really help me out. Best of luck if you guys are pulling. We'll have a nice pulling sessions or a couple pulling sessions over the weekend. So look out for those videos. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.